and welcome to Your Worth Your Way, the podcast that's all about helping you understand that you are worthy of prioritizing your joy without feeling selfish or guilty. I'm Debbie Lucas, the Joy Alchemist, and each week I'll be bringing you honest, heartfelt conversations with incredible guests, coaches, thought leaders, and soulful humans who'll share their stories and insights on self-worth, confidence, personal growth, and how to create a life that feels authentically yours. This isn't about quick fixes or cookie cutter advice. It's about real talk, practical takeaways, and plenty of soulful inspiration to help you live life your way. So grab your favorite cuppa, get comfy, and let's dive into today's episode. Today, I am joined by the inspirational Victoria Quance, an author, retreat leader, and intuitive mentor for soul-led entrepreneurs and spiritual professionals. With a rich background in psychology, wellness, and personal development and academia, Victoria blends neuroscience, strategy, manifestation, and psychic tools to help her clients create magnetic brands and abundant lifestyles. And today we'll be diving into manifestation, universal laws, tools, and subconscious, and the science and the psychology behind all of that. So this is totally my bag, Victoria, as is for many of my guests. So I know a little bit about you, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself a bit more and tell us what led to the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, all the good stuff, I think, that we all love to talk about. So I actually started this path probably a long, long time ago when I was a teenager, is when I sort of first established like my psychic gifts and the more witchy way of life, as I like to call it. But my career itself, went down the academic route. I was working as a lecturer and then up to an associate dean in a business school. But I realized there was something really missing in that work. And I was already coaching on the side at this time as well. I was already doing healing work on the side. But eventually, I think my morals and my ethics kind of got the better of me, and also wanting to find my own joy and follow my passions, which meant that I left employment and then went all in on my business, which is where I'm at now, and helping others to do the same as well, because we want to have that life of joy and create the wealth and abundance and the lifestyle that we truly deserve.
I love that so much. And I love how you have kind of merged and kind of created your own style of like your business and background, but also bringing in a bit of the woo as well. And,
Yeah.
I was actually speaking about this in one of the more recent episodes and also on social media around the kind of principle of having both and rather than either or. I lived my life and many of us live our lives of, it's either this or that. And actually, when we're living in a place of abundance, we can have both and it's about, it's about balancing that and having the harmony between it, because, you do need the masculine and the strategy and
Or
all of the rest of it, but you also need that feminine intuition and flow
yeah.
and just freedom and the bit that we all crave as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that's why it's sort of I have ended up having like the science and the strategy, but also for me, like I needed to understand why things worked. So as much as I had, spooky goings on as a child and started reading tarot at 13, I still wanted to know like how all this stuff worked. I needed that masculine energy. And obviously I studied psychology as well. So I was like, I need to have that so I can fully appreciate why the spiritual aspects work. Why does energy clearing work? Why does healing work? Like I needed that duality.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think one of the things for me around the both and concept is around a lot of times it could feel like you're having to do more, you're doing kind of like double the work or double whatever it is. And I think so many women, whether you're in business or whether it's in your career or whether it's just in your personal life, women reach the point where doing more no longer works because this burnout, as we get older, our hormone cycles change and everything kind of slowing down feels terrifying because we've been so used to just go, 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 multitasking, doing all the things. So what would you say is like the deeper value in pausing and how can it actually accelerate our growth?
I think that we need to remember that we are, we're human beings. We're not human doings, and we get very caught up in that. And I think society has a big part to play in that, and we're almost expected And men as well as women, but women especially because our energy cycles are completely different, right? So a man's cycle will be 24 hours, a woman's cycle is going to be around 28 days. So you're not going to have, like full energy, be completely full of beans all the time. And I
Yes.
think as soon as you can honor and respect that, you can then be more productive. So for me as a woman, if I look at either the lunar cycle or my own energetic cycle, I can get so much more done in just a week of being productive as such and having 1 or 2 weeks completely off. And I think if you can just respect that, acknowledge that, and accept it, I think that goes a long way because you have a physical body, but ultimately you're a soul in this physical
Yes.
body. Your physical body can only handle so much. Your human can only take so much. And like you say, that's then going to lead to burnout. It's when we get sick. It's when we don't feel ourselves because your human vessel's just like waving a flag, like, can we please acknowledge that I can only handle so much? So yeah, for me, just the acknowledgement and understanding that as a first step.
That's so super important, and that whole cyclical living was something, once I started embracing that, has become so good for me. And like before we started recording this podcast, we were
Mm,
talking about, even you've got your 28-day cycles, but you've also got your seasonal cycles that
yeah.
we were talking about. And like you and I both seem to be on the same page, where like autumn time here in the northern hemisphere is when
Mhm.
we seem to kind of come alive, and we're kind of inspired and active. I grew up in the southern hemisphere. That's where I was born, in South
Mm,
Africa. So I don't know if, because that's springtime. So I don't know if maybe I'm still kind of in that mode.
maybe.
But I've been here for
Yeah.
23 years, so maybe not. But yeah, September, so I know that sometimes there's things that I started at the beginning of this year that I'm really passionate about. But I'm like, this was the first year where I thought it's okay to pause that. It's okay to leave that sitting, because I know once September and October hit, I'll be on fire and I'll get things rattled out so, so quickly. But equally like that, like a 28-day kind of menstrual monthly cycle, like
Mhm.
the last maybe year and a half, I've really been honoring that, and knowing that, the days leading up to my bleed, and kind of the first or second day of my bleed, I do the bare essentials of what I absolutely need to do, and then I rest. Because like
Yeah.
that, as you say, like I know when that's finished, I'm on fire again and I can get things
Yeah.
done. And rather than before just powering through and being absolutely exhausted, it was no good to anybody.
No. No, and the quality as well of your work during that time is, it's going to make a difference. The only thing that I will do at that point in my cycle is I will still work with my clients because actually I am more intuitive at that time, and a lot of women find that as well because you're literally in flow. So
Yes.
things do literally flow through
Yeah.
you. So, so long as you've got clients that understand where you're at and that your energy levels and you want to have more sort of like gentle sessions, so healing sessions and things like that are lovely to do at that time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, talking about kind of like being in flow and kind of being in that state of surrender, and that's a lot of language that gets used in manifestation. But a lot of people feel like, I'm doing all the things, I'm doing the affirmations, I'm doing, I've got my crystals charged, under the full moon, and but something's still not working for them. So with the people that you've worked with, do you find that there's kind of one common mindset or energetic block that holds them back from creating the life that they truly desire?
I find that there's often multiple things, but when it comes to the doing, again, it's the doing, isn't it, rather than being. So with that, I find that all those lovely things, I always teach my clients that they are enhancers. So I love crystals. They're all over the house. They're everywhere. I love them. I wear all my crystal rings and everything. They enhance what's already going on underneath the surface. Your affirmations are going to enhance. They can also work with neuroscience as well. They can change your neurological pathways, but that takes time and consistency. But all those things, vision boards, all the wonderful tools that we like to use because it feels like we're doing something, spells, rituals, love them. But it just helps us feel like we're doing something. They are only like a cherry on top. The important thing is to look at your energy, your frequency, and again, who you are being. Not what you're doing, but who you are being. So these activities and utilizing things like crystals, they do elevate your frequency. That's why they are really important and really helpful, but they're only for a short space of time. It's only for while you're saying your affirmations or while you're looking at your vision board. It's not for the whole of the day. So I always say to people, try and be more mindful of your frequency and your energy. And it's not about being happy and positive all the time. I call that out quite a lot on my
Yep, yep, yep.
socials, because you want to feel all the feelings because you're human and you've come here for this experience. But also, you want to keep entangling as much as you can with the quantum and the same frequency of what it is that you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
That will serve you way more than any affirmation ever will. And you'll find your results come through quicker as well, the more you can do that. So your energy is your key.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I actually had this conversation with a previous guest who practices as a witch, Renee Rendell. If you want to go and find her episode later on for those listening, I can't remember what number it is, but yeah, she very much speaks about the fact that as a practicing witch, she uses magic, she uses the herbs, the crystals, the spells, all the things, but the magic is always within you and is seen as a tool to enhance. So, just holding on to an amethyst crystal or a citrine
Yeah,
crystal is not going to bring you the abundance. It's about the belief in yourself.
exactly.
And one of the things that I've kind of been delving deeper into for myself and for my clients is the whole bit around the difference between surrender and attachment and manifestation. So this is my view, and I'd love to hear your view on this, and feel free to disagree with me, but I very much think people confuse surrender with detachment. Detachment, when I learned about manifestation, I wrongly learned that detachment was detaching from the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But actually what lands truer for me now is actually what you're detaching from is the person who you are now and the version of you who has been up until this point, because to embrace the future version of yourself who has manifested what you desire, you need to let go of your past self.
Yeah.
Surrender is what people maybe understand as detachment. Surrender is allowing the flow. But the other part from surrender for me is that surrender isn't a passive act, which again, I wrongly learned and
Yeah.
believed at the start, where I just thought, oh, I can just sit back and sit in my feminine energy and everything's going to come to me. No, surrender means, you are letting go of the outcome,
Yeah.
but you're taking aligned action, because
Yeah.
if you want the job, or if you want the romantic partner, or if you want the new clients, unless you're putting yourself out there, unless you're joining a dating app or going to a place with, like, let's say it's a romantic partner and you love wall climbing, well, go hang out at the wall climbing place because that's where the person who matches your energy and your interests is going to be. Or if you've got to apply for the job, if you want it, nobody's going to, very rarely does somebody just say to you, would you like this job? It happens occasionally, but so I'd love to hear your thoughts on surrender and detachment, and kind of whether you agree or disagree with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this stuff. And my master's thesis was actually on attachment styles. And
Mm.
it really correlates, like your attachment style that you had as a kid. Like it plays out and you can change it, which is wonderful. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's so insightful. And I agree with what you're saying. I think there's a huge misconception around what we mean when we say detach and surrender. And obviously we've got the law of detachment as well as we've got the law of attraction, all the other universal laws. But for me, the way I like to describe this to people is like you've placed an order. So you've gone on to like theuniverse.com, like you go onto Amazon and you've placed your order for what it is that you want. So first off, we're going to detach from what that looks like, because I always say to my clients, it's this or it's something better. If they're out of stock of what you've asked for, they'll send you an upgrade. Okay, so it'll be this or something better. So we want to detach from what we think it's going to look like, because it's not always going to look like how we expect. So that's part of the detachment. But also, once you've placed that order, you're not going to keep checking on it. I know that, when we do place an order on Amazon, like, you can track the delivery and stuff. So it's kind of like that, but you wouldn't like be emailing Amazon and saying,
Yeah.
excuse me, have you put my order into its box yet? We don't chase it. We get updates anyway. We get like signs and synchronicities that let you know
Yeah.
that it's on its way.
Love
But we
that.
wouldn't keep pestering. If you're in a restaurant, you order your dinner, you're not going to go into the kitchen and keep asking the chef, where is it? You trust.
Yeah.
So detachment for me is trusting. You
Mm-hmm.
placed your order, it's been heard, trust. But you're absolutely right, because then we want to take action. And this is where people are like, oh no, I'm detached. I'm just, yeah, going to chill out at home. I always used to joke about this. Like many, many years ago when I was dating, and I was like, yeah, Chris Hemsworth's just going to come and knock on my door during lockdown as well, because that's really likely. Um, but we do sort of get muddled up with that. It's like, well, I've done my things now, and I'll just keep doing my affirmations or using my crystals. But you want to take that action, but it's not forced action. And if you can entangle more with the quantum, like we mentioned earlier, when you're working on your energy and your frequency, and you're focusing on being the person that's already received the thing, you will naturally get those nudges as to what action to take anyway. And a good way of kind of testing this is if you feel like you are pushing and it feels like a force, that's not an aligned action. If it's something that you're drawn to and it feels like almost like a pull, and you're like, oh, I want to try that, or oh, yeah, I want to go hang out at a climbing wall, and it's like a magnetic pull, that's your aligned action.
Absolutely agree with that. And I think, gosh, there's so much of what you said there. I'm just looking through my notes. Yeah. I think the bit around the surrender part as well is sometimes, right, okay, I'll give an example to help explain this. So I'm watching a TV show just now, and it's a medical drama, and there was a person, a man that came in, and he was really, really unwell, but had a series of kind of like what he claimed as good luck or good fortune, and he believed that you know he was Christian and he believed in God, and he was like, well, God will, if I'm meant to live, because basically the doctor was saying to him, if you don't get this treatment, you're going to die. And it's like, well, if God wants me to live, I'll live. If God wants me to die, I'll die. I'm not going to basically take any action or any decision around this. But what really struck me was what one of the doctors said to him was, well, could you not see that God or source or the universe in our language, whatever you want to call it, is given you the doctor who can help you with this? And I think that's so important around the concept of being present and being conscious and aware, because you need to see those opportunities. If you're just kind of like blinkered, oh, I'm in surrender and I'm just going to sit here, and you're not going to see the opportunity, like a flyer coming through the door. Let's use
Yeah.
the climbing wall example analogy again. Somebody's advertising a climbing wall. That's the universe saying to you, like, here's a place where you will meet people who have similar interests to you.
Yeah.
But unless you take that flyer and you go to the climbing wall center and you go and do the climbing and meet the people, you're not going to meet them. And I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
that's where the aligned action comes in, and absolutely like that. The push and the pull is so important. It's how I make my decisions now.
Yeah.
What feels expansive, what feels light, and what feels constricting.
Mm.
And I think that's where kind of like I've had this conversation with other guests before around using your intuition, and whether it's ego or fear or your intuition that's really kind of creating that feeling within you.
Mm.
Because sometimes the answer is no, don't do that, and it
Yeah.
genuinely is your intuition, like this is not the right thing for you. But
Yeah.
sometimes you're not doing the thing because you're just fearful and you want to stay in the safety. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love this stuff. It's ego versus soul, isn't it? It's a battle. It's the angel versus the devil. And yeah, I absolutely love this. I've got a retreat purely on intuition because it's so important. But what I say to people is you can feel it in your body. So like you do when you're making a decision, you know if it's a yes or a no. I've actually played games with my clients on retreats to establish this before, and I've like been like almost, like if you're talking about like consent and things
Yeah.
like that, it's the same kind of thing. So I'd be like, can I pinch your nose? And they'd be like, no. And I'm like, right, where did you feel that in your body?
I could
Like
actually, when you said that, I could feel
there
myself
you
pulling
go.
back. I was like, ooh, wait, ooh,
And you
scratching
can be
my
really,
nose.
really silly with it. You're like, can I paint your face?
Yeah.
Okay. But you'll
Uh-huh.
feel it like in a different place. So
Yeah.
that's one way of kind of feeling it in your body. You can muscle test as well. If anyone's done like theta healing or anything, like we can muscle test to see if it's a yes or a no. But when it comes to intuition versus fear, or your soul versus your ego, typically the ego will be loud because your ego has a purpose. And I think it gets a bad rep, and it's like, oh, you're so egotistical or yada yada. Your ego is a mechanism that all humans have to keep you safe. It's your protector. So it's not the bad guy. It might be the bad guy if it is holding you back and it's actually stopping you from living like a fulfilled life. But ultimately, it's your protector. So it will sound loud. It'll be like, you can't do that. That's not meant for you. You know, it sounds like the mean girl in your head. And what I would say is listen to it. Just let it rant, let it vent, give it the airtime that it needs, acknowledge it because there might be something in there that's actually highlighting something that's really important, or it's an invitation to clear something that's no longer relevant. So I think that's really important as well. We don't want to suppress it. Okay. We want to still listen to it. But your intuition is really subtle because it is that those body like little niggles and feelings that we get. And it's a much quieter voice because it's your soul and it's gentle and it's really chilled and relaxed because it's like, I know that this is what we're here for. We're going to fulfill this purpose anyway. The timing is up to the human, but I know what my destiny is and what I'm here to do. So I'm relaxed about it. But again, it's that push and that pull. So that's probably the easiest way of sort of distinguishing between the two, I would say. But again, your intuition needs it needs time and it needs space for you to hear it. And that's why, going on retreats or getting into a different physical space where you're away from the noise. Even if, you stop scrolling on social media for a week,
Yeah.
take yourself away from the noise, stop watching the news, get rid of like the noise in your environment, your intuition will start to speak to you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so, so important. And I think the bit that you said there about the ego and keeping you
Mm.
safe, and what you tapped in earlier about, feeling the feelings and things that are coming up, because that is, I think it's about acknowledging that, given
Yeah.
your ego and all the kind of big scary emotions like anger and fear and sadness and grief, giving them their place because they also have the purpose. And
Yeah.
yeah, they serve the purpose to keep you safe till now. And it's about integrating that rather than trying to kind of like put it in a box and put it on
Yeah.
a shelf and think, I've dealt with my grief or I've dealt with my anger.
Yeah,
It's over there, because it's never going, it's always going to be a part of you.
for sure.
So I think it's so, so important that, clearing that external noise, as you said, but also clearing that internal noise
Yeah.
of the emotions and the feelings, because I suppressed my anger for so many years. And I was in a group coaching container, I think it was about 2 years ago now, and she did this, we were working with goddesses, and she did this beautifully guided meditation. We went deep into the underworld, and like, oh, I actually, oh goodness, shiver down my spine. And there was this version of me who was like wild, like my hair was just like this,
Amazing.
and my eyes were like blood fire, and I was just like, ah! And I was like, oh my god, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But like, see, once I actually like sat with that version of me and spent
Yeah.
the time, of total goosebumps, but like, and so now, like, I can feel anger, I can get angry
Yeah.
at things in the world, I can get angry at things, and that happen, but it doesn't consume me, and it doesn't, it's like, okay, right, this anger is showing me now that something's not aligned with my values, that I feel like a boundary's been overstepped, yeah, for myself, for my beliefs, or my values. And so,
Mhm.
like, that's a beautiful way to be able to work with those feelings and your
Yeah,
ego. And
absolutely. Love the goddesses.
yeah,
Really,
oh,
really lovely.
who's,
Yeah.
who's your favorite goddess?
I'm a Hecate girl,
Okay,
and also Lilith.
right, the dark ones, yeah.
Yeah,
Last year I worked a lot with Gaia, um,
nice.
and I just, and there was a lot of things going on in my life that I didn't have a lot of control over, and I just had to ground myself. That was my word for the year, and so Gaia was just she was my goddess, and so I
Oh,
still, like, every morning, part of my affirmations is I'm grounded and I imagine my roots growing, and sometimes I just sit in meditation with her, and I just
mm,
I just sit with her in her presence, and she's this beautiful, ethereal, flowing
oh,
person, and like, I just sit, and it's just, I feel so held. And but anyway, sorry, I digress.
gorgeous, gorgeous. Yeah, just what we
um,
need.
so there's so many things I wanted to touch on there, but right, and let me lean into what needs to be out in the world. Hmm. Okay, yeah, the laws of
Okay.
the universal laws. So
Mm.
I have my favorite law, but I want to ask you first, what's your favorite law to work with, and how do you use that in your work?
Do you know, it changes quite a lot. It does change quite a lot. At the moment, I am working with law of potentiality
Okay.
quite a lot. Law of assumption used to be a real favorite of mine, but at the moment, law of potentiality and law of gestation is kind of sneaking
Mhm.
in a little bit as well, because impatience is one of my challenges, shall we say. But yeah, the law of potentiality, I think I love working with this law because it reminds me that there are infinite possibilities and potentials. And I think sometimes we need reminding of that. And, however deep you want to go with it, I mean, I love my quantum physics and the science of it. And, the thought of there being like multiple universes and timelines and, infinite versions of ourselves. Like, I love that. It blows my mind, but I love it. And if anyone wants to explore like the holographic universe, it's a tough read. It's one that I kind of like dip in and out of, but it's really interesting as well. It's a lot of scientific studies as to how this is actually happening, which is, yeah, mind blowing, but really, really cool. So I think sometimes when we're like, yes, I want to achieve this goal, I would love to have this. And then we go, is that possible? Can I do that? And if there's other people that have done it before you, chances are there is, then why not? Why not you? No good reason at all, other than your belief. So this is why I love that law. And if it's possible for someone else, it's possible for me, it's possible for you, it's possible for all of us. And your potential is literally infinite. So I kind of like working with this at the moment on a daily basis, saying, first thing in the morning, what is my potential for today? What would I love to be possible today? And then again, entangling with that frequency, connecting to higher consciousness and seeing what else comes through. But it expands you into excitement because there's so many opportunities. It gives you a little like boost of optimism. And if anything comes up that says, this is nonsense, you can't do this, brilliant, because it's there for you to then clear it.
Yeah.
So it's a great morning practice.
Yeah, and the law of potentiality is what got me to the point of being able to resign from my day job at the start of this year and go all in on my business. And like this, like through I had to work through all the fear and the ego and the what if it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
and what kind of the download that I had through one of my journaling or meditation sessions, I can't remember, but it was like that there are endless possibilities in the unknown. I was like, yes, yes, there are. Rather
Yeah.
than fearing the unknown, it's like that anything is possible. Resigning from my job means I can say yes to so much more. Even though I enjoyed my job and I wasn't leaving because I was miserable, but that's so important. And I think, when you see that, rather than thinking, focusing on the what if it doesn't work out, and you see that actually so much more is possible. Like you can tell
Yeah.
my voice and my energy there, just
Yeah.
everything opens up.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite law is the law of polarity, which kind of ties
Mm.
into that, because it's like, well, if this is true, then the opposite is
Yeah.
also true. So a lot of times when clients will come to me and go, but yeah, but what if this? And I'm like, but what if the opposite? So
Exactly.
and it's like, well, people, like, I remember for a while, one of my dreams when I was thinking of resigning years ago was to open up my own coffee shop.
Mm.
And everybody was just telling me it's so hard, it's a lot of hard work, and you need to work really hard to make it a success. And back then I was still very unconscious and like very much like taking on board all their messages and their words. But equally, like, well, like, yeah, it is hard for some people, but there are also people who make great successes of this, and like actually just at the weekend there's a place that's opened up near me. It's like a farm shop and kitchen kind of cafe place, and it was buzzing. And I was like, this is like, if you've got the right will and the drive and the belief in yourself and your concept, it can open up so much more to you. So yeah, there's so many different laws that we can work with. And I think, yeah, probably the law of polarity has been the one that's been quite relevant for me and my clients just now. But yeah, law of potentiality is amazing as well. Just because it just really opens your eyes up.
Yeah, it does. And it just gives you that little booster.
Yeah. And I think, for me, and I speak about this a lot on the podcast, like, when you're manifesting, you often think of, like, again, you get stuck in that loop of, when I have this, I will be happy. When I have this, I will feel freedom. When I have this, I'll be whatever. And actually, freedom is a big thing for me, but like how I embrace freedom in my daily life is by being joyful in my everyday moments. And I think, that's like, that is the frequency, that is what keeps you in that state of, not always necessarily happy and everything's love and light, but, kind of recalibrating when you do go off into kind of maybe different paths, recalibrating to that frequency of joy. is what then allows more to flow in and the opportunities to flow in. And it's one of my affirmations now. When I sit in joy, opportunities and abundance flow to me, because
Love
it's
that.
been proven to me time and time again. Like
Yeah.
I'm literally like the one I've cited so many times on this podcast now, but like I was in New York in June, and I was literally, 100 floors above Manhattan, and I was just enjoying the view with my son, and it was a beautiful sunshiny day. And I got a message in that's given me, steady income for the rest of this year. There was opportunity, and I was literally just sitting doing nothing. Hadn't
Yeah.
asked for it. It just literally did land in my lap. I'd done some of the work before. I put out there that I was available for certain things, but that's by the by. So yeah, one of the things I work with my clients a lot on is creating joy in their everyday life. So I'd like to ask you, how do you create joy in your everyday life, and any advice you would give to somebody who struggles to do that?
Yeah, of course. I think it's really interesting what you say as well about like the when we achieve something, we'll then be happy. It's actually the other way around. So we want to be first. So be, do, and then have is the
Yes.
way. So that's a really lovely way that I'd say to connect to joy. So whatever it is that you are currently focusing on in your life, whatever you are focusing on that you believe and you feel is going to enhance your existing joyous existence, I would amplify that. So if I was that person already, how would I be being throughout the day? I would probably take breaks. I would probably create a schedule that serves me on that day, depending on where my energy was. And I would probably be really respectful of how I feel on that day. And that for me makes sure that every day is joyful because I've respected myself and I've listened to myself. And I think that's so, so important. And I know for a lot of people, when we are in employment or we're in jobs and things, or we have restraints or we have children and there's certain limitations, but also you're still free. Unless you are listening to this from a prison cell, you still have freedom. You can go to the bathroom right now if you want to. You are free to do that. You're free to go and get a glass of water. We already have the freedom, which means you already have the power to make these choices. And I think that's really lovely.
Thank you. That was quite a refreshing take there, because so many of my guests, and I totally, and you would agree with this as well, talk about nature and being in nature. But I
Mm.
love that you've brought in something fresh and a fresh perspective there. And it's that bit, like the one of the big takeaways for me from what you said, and there were so many, was that like who are you being,
Yeah.
and that be, do have, be.
Yeah,
That does
exactly.
it, because then you're stuck in the how of the manifestation, and you're just constantly like hustling and performing, and
Yeah,
you're just
not
never going to
about that.
get to that place. It's been an amazing conversation, and I kind of had to force myself to bring it to a close. I could have gone on forever. It's been I've had so much fun. Yeah,
Oh,
thank you for sharing your stories and
no
insights.
worries.
And I am sure that my listeners want to find out more about you, your retreats, and what you do. So where do you hang out? Where can people find out about you and your work?
Yeah, that would be so lovely. So I hang out on Facebook and Instagram. I'm just sort of dabbling into the TikTok world as well because I love TikTok for like watching sweep videos and
Yes,
food recipes. So I'm just sort of like going into that world. But yeah, you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram for sure under Victoria Quance, or I think it's I am Victoria Quance. And I can give you my links as well to
brilliant.
share with people. But yeah, I would love to connect with people.
Thank you. And again, for everybody, I'll add the links in the show notes so you can access that and connect with Victoria there as well. Definitely go check her out. So thank you. It's been
Thank
amazing.
you so much. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Worth Your Way. I know that you'll be walking away feeling inspired and ready to embrace your worth and prioritize your joy. If you love this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review or share it with someone who needs a little bit of encouragement today. And don't forget to hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. And you can connect with me, find out more about the podcast, my guests, and what I do at debbielucas.me/links. And if you don't already, follow me on your favorite social media platform. I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversation there. And until next time, remember that you are worthy exactly as you are.